You know, public school has been very different around here since the pandemic and the social distancing protocols swept through Nova Scotia in March, and that's impacted everything from how your children learn their school subjects to whether there are going to be proms or graduations as usual at the end of June. So we decided to check in with Paul Landry. He's the executive director of the Strait Regional Centre for Education. Let's listen to that interview now. Obviously, these are very, very different times than earlier this year in terms of just getting basic public education out to the people of the Strait Region, to the students and their families. Can we wind the clock back a little bit to get a sense of how prepared the Strait Regional Centre of Education and its individual schools were for the pandemic to set in?
Yes, there certainly was some preparation that was taking place prior to March the 13th, when we had to make quite a change in how we do things. So we had been meeting a number of times previous to that date in preparation for a possible COVID-19 pandemic. And, there was lots of processes and procedures that we were considering along the way prior to that happening. I guess initially our planning focused on keeping schools open and what it would take to be able to do that in our region. So we had a number of meetings regarding that. And then we had to make a change very quickly as we approached March the 13th. And we had to shift direction at that time. And it was just prior to, I guess, the Friday prior to the March break happening. So we did have the luxury of a bit of time over March break to get together to plan and get ready for what learning would look like from there forward. And so we created our own pandemic planning committee that we had within the region, and we communicated often with our provincial partners with education and early childhood development, as well as with public health.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the concept of communication, because that leads me into my next question. Obviously, pandemic-based education in a public school system doesn't work without constant communication. Can you walk us a bit through that and about how often you folks would be speaking to people like principals and teachers and such, and just getting updates on how everything seemed to be going? What was that process like over the last couple of months?
That process has been quite a change, really, for us on how we communicate and how we collaborate. But I will say that there's been tremendous cooperation and collaboration amongst all of the staff to help prepare for at-home learning for all of our students. In the initial stages of the pandemic and when schools and buildings were closed down, we met on a daily basis, communicating with our provincial partners on a daily basis, as well as with our regional teams and our pandemic planning team. And then as we got on the other side of March break, then we were meeting daily as well with our school administrators, and they held many meetings as well with their teaching staff and their staffs within their buildings through various means, through conference calls and through technology meeting rooms, through different suites that they use to do that. So tremendous amount of communication, especially in the first few weeks of the pandemic as we were preparing to get ready for at-home learning. A lot of shifts in how we were going to do it, and lots of communication. But we still, as we've progressed, through the months to where we are today, we still have very regular communication. Not every day, close to it. We still meet at least a couple of times a week with everyone involved. And I know our staffs meet both as whole staffs and in learning teams that they've created to support students.
I've heard the comment more than once, Paul, that even if this pandemic had occurred as recently as 2010 or 2005, it would have been much more difficult to be able to carry out basic activities like the ones that you folks are carrying out now in terms of the learning at home modules. Do you get the sense, speaking to teachers, speaking to principals, and even in feedback from families, that the technology has advanced to the point where this type of thing is working? Are you getting good feedback from the real stakeholders here, which is the students and their families, about how this has all been working over the past couple of months?
There are certainly some benefits that we're seeing through the use of technology, and the platform that we're using, I think is quite good. It has allowed our teachers have had to adapt, and some were using it prior to the pandemic. Some of the teachers have had to or have changed to deliver that programming, and some of the feedback has been positive. Some of the feedback is we're still learning and trying to figure this out, which is quite normal. And what we've been finding often is that between teachers and students and regional staff, everyone's been sort of working together to figure it out. So certainly lots of benefits around that. And there's different ways that they're working through this, sort of high tech and sort of mid tech and low tech options, so that everyone is included. So it's been a very interesting journey for sure, but I think a positive journey that we can do this, and everyone really came together to make it happen.
Now, we are coming up to the point where the school year, the academic year, is actually going to officially end. Students and teachers, or some combination thereof, are going to be allowed to go back into the buildings the following week to be able to reclaim some of their materials. Can you break down for me just how that's going to work?
Sure. So as you noted, school does finish up this week. The formal at-home learning portion of the school year will conclude this Friday, and so some of our teachers have been already into the buildings collecting some of their personal belongings that they have not been able to access or weren't able to complete to gather up all of their belongings and materials. So some of them, most of them actually have been in the buildings already and prepared their classrooms for our usual summer processes that we have with regards to cleaning and maintenance and those types of things. So as we say, most of them have completed. After this week, staff or students and families or students will be able to access their personal belongings that have been in the buildings since prior to the March break. So that's another process. But we are, as we're doing that, we are following strict public health guidelines on access and public health protocols around COVID-19, providing extra cleaning, and our custodial staffs will be on site, and the number of people entering and exiting the building will certainly be controlled and safe for our school communities to be able to do this. So yeah, we think we have quite a good plan in place. Our school administrators have been really busy arranging that and working with students and families and our staff, and we certainly appreciate all the work that has gone into this, as well as our operations staff who have worked very closely with our school administration and regional teams to make this event safe for people to enter, come in and pick up their belongings.
All right. Looking a little later in June, Paul, I want to speak a little bit about graduating students, about grade 12s. And back in March, when the real changes were announced, Premier McNeil said at the time that grade 12 students would not have to worry, that they would be able to complete their year, to be able to get the credits they needed, to basically have everything in place to be able to finish the process of graduation, but mainly to prepare them for post-secondary education. And just focusing on that for a moment, I'm wondering, do you feel that that's been the case within the Strait Regional Centre for Education? Do you feel that teachers have been given the tools they need to be able to bring the grade 12 students to the end of the line to be able to finish things up?
Right. So that was our initial focus when we were looking at getting at-home learning going. Was our number one priority after the pandemic hit, and we were making changes to how we delivered learning. Our grade 12s were our number one focus because we wanted to keep them, on the timelines that they had for to proceed with graduation. So, after March the 13th, if you were on track to graduate prior to March the 13th, you would still have that opportunity to graduate. And, if there were some things that, you may not have been on track to graduate and needed some extra supports, there has been certainly lots of focus on students to help them achieve that from March the 13th until now. But really, our teachers and our students have been able to improve their scores, their marks from March the 13th, working through e-learning opportunities, mostly through the Google Suite that we currently use to work with our students. So. For the most part, we think that most of our students have done quite well along this process and are on track to graduate later on this month.
And when graduation comes, this is a topic that's been coming up more and more over the last couple of weeks, just the concept that obviously due to social distancing restrictions, even the eased restrictions that are still in place at this time, it's going to be very difficult to be able to carry out a graduation ceremony as it normally would take place. Obviously, the principals and administrations at the individual high schools are taking a look at that. Is that something that your office within the Centre of Education is involved with? Is there collaboration happening here in terms of how to stage a graduation that follows the rules and is safe for everyone?
We are going to be setting up graduation recognition events at each of our high schools, and it will involve following closely public health protocols with regards to congregation. So there will be appointments set up where graduates can come into the building with their gowns and caps on, and with some members of the family. They'll be able to come in and get their photo taken with a backdrop from their school, either with themselves or with their family members as well. Pick up their diplomas, and then pick up an envelope that they usually get when they do graduate that has all the things that they need in there to move on from graduation and to transition into any post-secondary institution that they may be heading for. So we think it's not ideal. We would like to be having our traditional ceremonies celebrating this and people getting together, but unfortunately we are not able to do that this year. So we think that this event certainly will be able to provide some positive recognition to our graduates and benefit them as they go forward.
This brings me to the question, where do we go from here? And more importantly, where does the education system locally go from here? Obviously, you folks are waiting, as are many of us, for the various directives that'll be coming from public health and from the provincial government over the course of the summer. And of course, we keep an eye on the possibility that there could be a second wave of COVID-19 sweeping through either in the summer or through the fall, or perhaps both. With all that being taken into account, how does the Strait Regional Centre for Education prepare for the 2020-2021 academic year? What kind of role do you folks play, and basically what happens from here on in?
So we've been doing some planning, both in the region here in the Strait Regional Centre for Education, of what September could look like. At this time, as we know, it's very hard to predict, and we're not speculating at this time what things are going to look like in September, but we are preparing for different scenarios that may develop over the summer or throughout this month from now until then, I guess. And so we're working within the region, but we're also working with our provincial partners as well. So the other regions across the province, we're getting together to plan and prepare, and that really helps us out a lot with regards to sharing resources, sharing ideas, and working on plans together. So we are committing a lot of time at this time to be ready for where we arrive at late summer into September, and what school will look like at that time.
Okay. A quick follow-up question on that, Paul. I'm just wondering, what does that mean for registration for programs such as pre-primary within the Strait Regional Centre for Education? What happens there, and what have you told the parents that could be affected by this?
So we have been having ongoing registration with our pre-primary program. So parents are able to register. We promoted that late, I think early in February, later in January. And typically with pre-primary programming, it's been in our region now for a couple of years. And that's an ongoing registration opportunity that parents can have. So this year we put up a link that parents can register online. So that's ongoing, and those processes, we're still accepting registrations and encouraging parents and families to register for pre-primary because, like we said, we could be in school, or we may have to make some changes. We're not sure of that right now, but we're certainly promoting registration for the program.
Last question to you, Paul, is one that I ask to a lot of my interview subjects at this point in time. Do you take any positive steps or any learning away from a period like this, where you folks have had on more than one occasion to reinvent the wheel in terms of basic public education and how your students are learning and how in some cases they're preparing to graduate? What can you take away from a time like this that could be helpful and positive for the Strait Regional Centre for Education and its schools in the future?
Really, Adam, I have just been so impressed with how everyone has come together to make this happen. For everyone from our professional collaboration with our staffs and the cooperation that we've had from students and families and our school communities and our partners that we work with, our provincial partners and so on. The support that we've had and the cooperation and collaboration really has just been outstanding, and the willingness to learn new things and to try new things and to make shifts and lots of pivots and so on along the way. So it's been just tremendous, I guess the sense of teamwork and support that we've received certainly through this process.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking to Paul Landry. He is the Regional Executive Director for the Strait Regional Centre for Education. We've been speaking to him at his office at SAREC via Zoom.